Hi everyone, and welcome to the Spring 2022 semester for Motor Development Kin 315. My name is Natalie, and I'll be your instructor for this semester. The best way to reach me is by email. I do usually respond within 24 hours. I am currently working on a PhD at UMass Amherst, so I have a 3-hour time difference. So sometimes if you email me particularly later in the evening, it might take a little bit longer for me to respond. So just keep that in mind. For office hours, we'll do Zoom meetings, obviously because I'm not in California. And I decided to schedule these this semester through Calendly. So this link will take you to the Calendly website, and you will be able to view my availability 7 days in advance. And I'm doing appointments because my classes and my teaching schedules between UMass and Long Beach are very all over the place and not consistent. So having a block of time every single week that's the same is kind of weird this semester. So the appointments will be in 30-minute blocks. You don't have to use that full 30 minutes, but if you want to meet for any reason, go over an activity, an exam, ask questions on lecture, whatever, you can schedule an appointment. You will get notification emails from Calendly saying that you have confirmed an appointment. If you need to change it, that's okay. And then you'll get another reminder day of the appointment so that you remember you have it. This is a link for the Zoom meeting that I'll be using. It's just like my personal meeting room. If you're into using the ID numbers, this is the meeting ID. All of this is also in the content section of Beachboard, so you should have no problem finding any links within the course itself. For our class meetings, this is a completely asynchronous class, so we don't have any scheduled meeting times during the week. Everything will be pre-recorded, and all links will be available within your weekly modules and checklists. If you have to meet with me for any reason, again, or you have any questions on lecture material, you can either email me or we can set up an appointment. Prerequisite coursework is kind of all of your basic information. I think this has recently been updated. This is from a previous syllabus, and I know there are not just exercise science majors in here, so I think this has been opened up. But if you're in here, welcome. General course description is motor development across the lifespan, and we've got several course learning outcomes that are associated with specific topics that we'll be talking about throughout the semester. Each course learning outcome can be further divided into sections that are related to the modules that we cover. So if there's like a specific lecture based on early childhood development, right, then that will have its own specific module learning outcomes that can be related back to these course learning outcomes. So I will have a spreadsheet for any of you who like to keep track of this stuff. I'll have a spreadsheet where it kind of consolidates how your learning activities coincide with the learning objectives. For course time commitment, this is a 3-unit course, so usually it's 3 hours per unit, which gets us to an average of 9 hours a week. Usually this class would have been scheduled for about an hour, 50 minutes to a 2-hour period, so I'm assuming lectures will usually take you about that long. Since everything is recorded, you can start and stop your videos or rewind, etc. So that too is a little bit of a loose time constraint based on how long the weekly lectures are and then how long you choose to spend on them, based on like how many notes you're taking and how long you stop or rewind. You will have about 1 hour a week of practice activities and observations. These are kind of these will be done in the HK Propel website, or the web study guide, which is something it's something new I'm trying this semester, but I think will be a lot more beneficial for the actual activity component that you guys are doing. So these practice activities, you go into the HK Propel website, and then it'll kind of give you like a step-by-step guided activity, where you'll like watch performance of a skill and then assess it, and then it'll tell you if you're right or wrong, kind of redirect your attention towards certain things you should be looking at. So that, again, is a little bit like subjectively dependent on what your preferences are when you're going through those practice activities. The actual activity that you turn in is going to be through Dropbox. So I give you a list of things to do, some questions to answer. Usually there's an observation component in there, and then fill in your answer sheet, submit it to Dropbox, and you're pretty much done. So again, another subjective thing depending on how long you choose to take on that. There's like another 3-hour buffer that could be reallocated to any one of these 3 things above, but those are primarily where you're going to be spending most of your time. I do make a note that it's a rough estimate for the average student, just because people have different learning styles. Some people may not grasp the material as quickly as others, so time commitment may vary from student to student, but generally speaking, that's about how much time you should be spending in this class. I also strongly encourage you guys to space your workout. Since it is an online class, I know time management can be difficult. So I've given an example of how 1 week might work for you. Everything is going to revolve around Thursdays, which is kind of a weird day, but it's the only day that I could figure out for this semester, given the number of instructional days that we have. So Thursday is the day. That's when all module materials will be released for a given week. What I would prefer you guys to do the first day is check what is being assigned. That literally will take you 2 minutes. You look at the checklist, you see, all right, I've got a lecture. This is about how long the lecture will be. This is the activity. This is supplemental materials. This is practice, whatever, right? Do a quick overview of your checklist. Start watching the first half of your lecture videos. Sometimes we cover multiple chapters. In 1 week, I think I limit it to 2 chapters as like the cutoff. So you could watch 1 chapter lecture video and then watch the other chapter lecture video. I also try to split the videos up into 20 to 30 minute segments. That way you could sit for, 45 minutes, leave, come back to it another day. So however you want to split up your lecture videos is completely up to you, but I would recommend watching the first half on Thursday, watch the second half on Friday, and then use the rest of that time for that day to download any other materials that you might need for the week. And then review or go back over your lecture notes if you have time. I am not counting weekends, so if you like to get crazy on the weekends, you could still do this class without having weekend time. Monday, I would say if you do take a break Saturday, Sunday, review your notes that you took Thursday, Friday. That's kind of like a good callback to see how much you remember. There is a quiz that's associated with each module. I think there's only one exception to that rule, but I'll go over that when we get to the course schedule. So I would say review your module notes, take your quiz, which is always going to be based on lecture, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday / part of Friday you can use for all of your activity components. In reality, the activity should take you could probably do it actually all in one day. If you want to split it across a couple days so that you can do other things, that's fine. But there is kind of this like 2-day crossover where the due date for every single module is on a Friday, but new material gets released every Thursday. So I do that to allow you guys to have time to interact with the material, and then if you have questions, we have time to set up office hours appointments or go back and forth in email. So don't save stuff to the last minute. That's kind of the point of this entire table. Okay. For course resources, the textbook itself is not required. However, if you're one of those students who likes to read through the chapters as we go, that's totally fine. I'm a big advocate in not making you guys pay for textbooks that you'll never use again. So if you want to buy the textbook, I would recommend renting it. That way you don't have to worry about returning it. Yeah, anyways, there's that. It also would be cheaper in conjunction with the HK Propel access that you are required to get for the class. This is only like $40, so it's not a huge expense, but this is the only way I'm able to give you guys the practice like web activities and observations that come with the textbook. I've tried to do a workaround that and it was not successful. So the HK Propel is required. There are various options and on how you can get it. So you can get it just by itself. So that's just the access code. So when you create an account, you put your access code in. I believe there's going to be a course code. I'll send that in a separate email. But it basically just gives you access to the web study guide. You can do a loose leaf with the HK Propel web study guide. You can do an ebook with the HK Propel. You can do a paperback. So there's lots of different options and approximate price points. These are all based on the Human Kinetics website, which is the publisher of the book. But there also are available in bookstore. My preferred website is cheapesttextbooks.com. I have saved hundreds of dollars using that website. And it's kind of like an Expedia for textbooks. So it'll tell you the cheapest rates for renting, buying new, buying used. If you want to sell back, you have options to sell back. So again, if you want the book, I would probably recommend seeing what it is to rent in conjunction with purchasing just the access code by itself. That way you're not stuck with the book at the end of the semester. You will need computer access and internet access. So if you are using like a personal laptop, I think iPad should be compatible for the most part, as long as you have web browser access, so Wi-Fi compatibility. If you don't have a device to use for this class and or you don't have reliable internet access, the campus does provide hotspot and computer loan programs through the Division of Student Affairs, and then the library also has an additional website for other internet access options in kind of the Long Beach area. You will need Microsoft programs. You do have free online access to these programs through your Office 365 apps. Sometimes I've had students run into limitations with Excel. There are a couple of activities where I give you like a spreadsheet with some data so that we can look at developmental trends over time, and I'll have you graph those trends. Sometimes people aren't able to do certain things with that. So if you run into problems with Excel for whatever activity, you can either use a campus computer, like going to Horn Center or the library, or you can use the Student Virtual Lab, which is basically like a mirror image of a campus desktop computer, but it's on your computer. So I've given or provided a video if you've never used the virtual lab before. It is accessible through your Microsoft apps or your single sign-on page, so that video shows you how to get there. If you don't want to do the 2 free options for Microsoft programs, which is how all of the materials are delivered, you could purchase Microsoft apps for your computer to download. I know for students it's like a mega discount compared to if you were buying it as a normal person in the real world. So not that we're not normal people, but it is nice to take advantage of the discount before you graduate. So if you don't have those, I would recommend getting them, especially if you're going to grad school. That's another conversation for another day. Grading criteria and point distributions. I like to grade on kind of a slightly different scale than other people. So your regular A is 90 to 100%. I usually say that if you're on a cusp, so like 89.5 or above, I would round you to an A. So my grading scale goes from those cusp grades to like the normal stopping point. So really this is kind of like an 89.4 if you're looking at the decimal scale, but whatever. At the midpoint of the semester or somewhere around the midpoint, I kind of decide based on what assignments have been completed. Sometimes I'll wait until after an exam, but I do post midterm progress grade reports through your student center. So I will let you know when those are posted, but you can take a peek, see how you're doing in the class. If we pass the final withdrawal date and you have a non-passing grade, you can convert it to a credit, no credit. It has to be done with an advisor. That way the non-passing grade doesn't affect your GPA. The other option would be to file for an incomplete, which you have to have or meet certain eligibility requirements to file for one. So those are two options if you're getting a less than desirable grade in the class. I typically have had a good passing rate in previous semesters that I've taught this, so as long as you do your weekly assignments, you put a bit of effort in, I think you should be okay. As far as what you are getting graded on, we have the Get Started module, which is basically free points, so please don't skip out on this. If you're watching this video, you've probably already started the Get Started module. But basically this just consists of a syllabus quiz to make sure that you've actually read what the terms of agreement are for this class, and then there's an Introduce Yourself discussion board, so I know who you are and so your classmates know who you are, even though everybody's probably not going to be interacting as much as if we were in an in-person class. Okay. Exams, there will be 4. They're all section exams, so they'll be based on any material that is kind of preceding the exam. After that exam, we have a clean slate, go over some more material, new exam, that type of thing. Okay. There will be a quiz with each module. There are 10 quizzes, therefore there are 10 modules. Each module will also have an activity. So the bulk of your points for the class are going to be coming from the things you're interacting with the most every single week. Okay, I've got descriptions of learning activities where you can find them, if there are any attempt restrictions. For exams, I will be conducting these using Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor. Unfortunately, I've had some run-ins with cheating attempts in the past. I used to not use these things because I know test anxiety is kind of elevated with them. But I also am a big advocate for academic integrity, and some students in the past have broken my trust. So we will be using Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor. That means you will need a webcam. So if you are planning on taking your exams on campus computers, you might need to find alternative accommodations for that. I don't know if there are any loan programs for webcams, but I was going to look into it. If not, I know you can buy external webcams for pretty cheap, like through Amazon. But in either case, you will need to have some type of recording device so that your computer can proctor your test environment. If there are any cases of suspected cheating, basically I will ask to meet with you to see what is going on or kind of explain to you why I think there may have been cheating. if I still suspect it after the meeting and we kind of like don't come to an agreement, then I just submit it to the Academic Integrity Committee, which is kind of like a non-biased third party. If you are found responsible, you just get a 0 on that exam. Okay. That's not supposed to be there. Never mind. Yeah, so you just get a 0 on the exam attempt. You don't get to make it up in any way. For quizzes, these are just based on the lecture material for the week that the quiz is assigned. Activities are going to be, again, mostly observational. Sometimes you'll be collecting data, so just make sure you pay attention to due dates, especially if we're doing class data collections, because once the data collection cutoff happens, you just lose those points for the week. Okay. I do allow activities to be turned in up to 24 hours after the posted due date. So if for any reason you turn something in from midnight to 11:59 the day after the due date, it's a 10% deduction. So you could turn it in at 12:01, it's still 10% deduction. Okay. So saying that, like, oh, I ran into issues because I was trying to submit my assignment at 11:58, try to submit it not at 11:58. Okay. The only exceptions to late work are if you tell me, an excusable reason for why you didn't turn in your assignment within the 9 days that you had. I'm not a monster with this stuff. Like, I understand. So I would rather you talk to me than not turn in an assignment. For extra credit, I offer up to 1% extra credit by completing pre-semester and post-semester surveys. These are primarily for course design, and they are very different from spot evals. So just because they're a little bit more specific, the pre-semester gives me an idea of where you are within the online environment, and then post-semester kind of just is a recap on the semester if certain course elements were helpful to you or not. As far as grading turnaround, it usually takes me about a week to week and a half to grade assignments, especially for this class. The activities are mostly written responses, so sometimes it takes a little bit longer depending on how many written responses you have. If I ever run into delays because of my classes or other teaching obligations, I will usually email you guys to give you an estimated date on when you can expect grades on an assignment. It is your responsibility to keep up to date on your grades, and anything on Beachboard. So if you miss a deadline and you email me and you're like, I forgot to turn this in, like, you gotta take accountability, okay? So I recommend setting up notifications in Beachboard. That way when content's posted, when grades are updated, when you have availability ending on a quiz or something, you get notified for those updates. The course schedule is linked here. That's at the very, very last page of the syllabus. Everything pretty much from here to the course schedule is all department related policies that I'm supposed to include in here, so I'm not going to read through any of these. I'll let you guys do that. Main parts are plagiarism and cheating. Just don't do it. I do check IP addresses that are provided through Beachboard, and I also look at timestamps of exams as well as answer similarity. So I do check stuff, and I would rather not have to deal with all of that, so just don't do it. Take some pride in the stuff you know. For attendance policy, I put a quote-unquote attendance policy because it's not really an attendance when you don't have to attend anything. So the attendance policy is primarily going to relate to due dates. If you know, you get sick over the weekend, or I don't know, you have jury duty or a religious holiday, that any of these university approved excused absences, all I need is proof of absence or proof of the reason why you missed the due date, and then we can do an extension. I try to be sensitive with death, injury, or serious illness of immediate family members, just because if, you know, like a family member's in a hospital, I'm not going to make you take a picture of that and make that be your proof, right? But if you are sick or injured, for example, let's say maybe you get COVID over this semester, you just have to send me like your positive test result or something so that I know you're kind of out. Other illnesses, you would need a doctor's note. So just keep those in mind if you're going to miss a due date, that you have some type of proof of absence. I do give one late extension for mental health reasons. I myself suffer from seasonal depression and high functioning anxiety, so I know they can interfere with life. Also, in these crazy times, who doesn't have depression or anxiety, whether you've been diagnosed or not, right? Like, we're people and we have feelings. So if you're struggling, you can send me an email, say you want to cash in your mental health card, and you get an extension, no questions asked, on any one assignment that you need, okay? Following that, I will probably ask you if you're okay, if you need to talk, and or if you want any resources that are available to you through the campus, or we can talk about coping mechanisms. I'm not a licensed therapist, so I can't really give you, like, I can't tell you what to do. I can only give you resources. So just like keep that in mind. I'm always open to talk though if you just need someone to vent to. Yeah, anyways, you get one extension for mental health. Below are the withdrawal policies, and different times of withdrawal and how they work. Preferred gender pronouns, you do get to put these in your introduce yourself discussion board if you want to. That way I know how to address you properly. You can also add these in your My CSULB page. So if you feel like adding that there, that's cool too. Important semester dates and deadlines. I've put the ones that I think are important, particularly when campus is closed, we have a break, or there's some type of add, drop, or withdraw related date. So keep these in mind if you're considering. Hopefully no one has to withdraw, but if the semester's not working out, these are the dates that you want to refer to. The rest of the links in here are for any type of campus resource that you might need access to. And then last but not least, we have our tentative course schedule. So the way this is laid out is in sections or parts. Each part has about 3 or 4 chapters that we cover content-wise. Again, each module or each of those sections, right, is going to have both an activity and a quiz. The only exception to the one activity, one quiz is when we get to this section 3. And it's just because I think for these 2 chapters there wasn't really an activity that I liked that came with the web study guide. So, or they were like, you have to go observe somewhere, and in pandemic times that really just wasn't an option. I do have the book chapters listed here if you are following along with the book, and then your start and due dates are all listed on the side. The one thing, or one of the reasons why I chose this format of a release Thursday date and a due date on Friday is that I needed time to make sure that your activities were graded. So you'll see for exam dates, these are going to be on Thursdays, okay, all of them. And I'll send out a poll or something of the like to see if there's a certain time window when most people can take their exams. That way I can make sure I'm available to answer questions. I do have it so that I have about 5 to 6 days to get your activities graded. That way you have some feedback before going into the exam. What else? I think that's kind of it. The only kind of crunchy time, I feel like we usually have one more week in the spring semester that I don't know if it's the Thursday start day that's kind of throwing things off. But typically I would have had a review week here, and it just didn't end up working out unless I gave you guys homework over spring break, which I think is criminal. So these last 2 weeks are kind of going to be a little bit of a crunch. The nice thing is that a lot of the concepts are like related to each other, or like they're very, very connected, so it's kind of easy to disseminate the information. Your last exam, or your exam 4, it's not a final exam, it's not cumulative, but it will be during finals week on Thursday the 12th. Because this is an online asynchronous class, like we don't have a designated finals date or time. So if you have, like a buttload of finals on that day specifically, just show me your final schedule, and you can always take the exam early, but not late. Okay. This is a tentative schedule, so if based on progress of the class, I'm like, we need to take a pause, I seriously doubt that will happen, because figuring out dates for this was really difficult. I think I spent a whole day on it. But if anything does change, I will either post it in the news function in Beachboard or will email everybody so that we're all on the same page. All right? So if you have any questions on any of the course policies, please feel free to shoot me an email, or we can meet during office hours, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.